chosen slightly different approach for today. Normally, when we talk of Mahabharata or scriptures, we go to the spiritual level. We go to those levels which are actually, maybe the para, the other side of knowledge. But today, purposefully, I have taken certain other aspects. And these aspects actually germinated from my basic questions why I started approaching Mahabharata. There were two major questions. One question was academic, the other was very, very materialistic. The academic question was, what is this book? Is it really perfectly edited book that we can't even remove a single comma out of it? And this question came from a research methodology workshop. We were doing a workshop, and then the perpetual question that Indians don't have their own research methodology systems. And then suddenly I realized that all our scriptures are perfectly edited books. You can't even remove a punctuation mark, forget the word or sentence. We can't change the places, they are perfectly placed. Whether we talk of the pronunciation or intonation or words or sentences or phrases, what heightened efforts it might have taken to produce the books. They are perfectly edited. You see the chapterization, you see the content into chapter, the breaks of the adhyay into Mahabharata. I'm talking right now only of Mahabharata. The Parv, the Adhyay, some chapters have up to 200 Adhyay. Some have only 18, 19 Adhyay. Like, who actually decided, sat down, segregated, made a plan? Today, if we ask our researchers to make a research plan, they're confused. They just put haphazardly some topics here and there and put 6 or 7 chapters, and the first one is always introduction and last one is always conclusion. So we have a prototype. And none of our scripture is reposting the previous experience. They are all unique experiences. So one was this reason that I wanted to attend this epic, which is actually from Gita Press. It is in 6 volumes. So I really wanted to study that. My other question was a very different question. Whenever we heard the stories of Pandava and Kauravas, I had not till then studied Mahabharata as Mahabharata. So, okay, Pandavas are living in the forest for most of their lives. Kauravas are actually the kings. They are ruling, they are reigning, they are Chakravarti, they are going to places, winning over Samrajya after Samrajya. Then why did Kaurav lose and why Pandavas won? They never had any army. They were actually having the less number of armies, only 7 Akshani, while Kauravas were much larger in size. They themselves were much more in number. All gurus were with Pandavas. Kripacharya, Dronacharya, Pitamaha, Bhishma, everyone was with Kauravas. What made them lose Mahabharata? I'm not talking of, okay, Krishna was with Pandava and they didn't have Krishna. There has to be some reason, some what we say, concrete reasons for the win or the victory of Pandavas. So this question was very perpetual in my mind. Again and again, I wanted to know what are the factors that associated the victory part with the Pandavas. And there are much more questions. For example, whenever we used to go to some international, cultural meet or something, they would just ask, how is it possible, that Draupadi is a Yagyaputri, or Hanuman is Pavanaputra, or Sita is Dhartiputri? How many types of Janma are there? How many types of birth are there? And then we have always heard that whatever is there in Mahabharata is there in the world. Even in Yugantar, like for ages and ages and ages, you won't find anything which is not there in Mahabharata. And whatever is not there, there is nothing in the world we can find. So if I have to seek the question, the answers, I have to reach to Mahabharata. And then there were other things, the text within the texts. There's so many texts within the text. When I was reading Abhigyan Shakuntalam, the source is Mahabharata, the one parv. When we read Vishnu Sahasranam, the source is Mahabharata. When we read Bhagavad Gita, the source is Mahabharata. So how many texts are germinated out of Mahabharata? What type of formation of this book is, where we have independent books woven as the part of a story. So how many layers are there of Mahabharata? And why these layers? Because the whole Mahabharata, it just functions like to and fro. So sometimes it is Vartaman, the present, sometimes it is Bhut, sometimes it is Bhavishya. What is happening actually? Why there is no linear way to tell a story? Then we come to the number of shlokas. They say 60 lakh shlokas. And out of 60 lakhs, 30 lakh went to the Devalok, 14 lakh to the Gandharvalok, 1 lakh to Yakshalok, and 1 lakh to the Manushyalok. Why only 1 lakh to the Manushyalok? And then we come to know, okay, we are still with the Simit Buddhi. We are not being able even to grasp these 1 lakh shloka, what we would have done with another 59 lakh shlokas. So where lies the wisdom? What are we missing out of it? The other questions were that what type of study is this? Because when Vyas speaks, he speaks shloka. Shloka means chand, gati, kavya, and ras. The utterance of Vyas is in this form. And then when he actually sat down with Brahma, and Brahma said, oh, this plan is very vast, and you must have a big writer who can write down your thoughts, and there cannot be anyone better than Ganesh. So you please take Ganesh as your writer, and Ganesh put one condition: the moment you stop, I'll stop writing. So Vyas came up with his condition and said, okay, the condition is, till you understand almost all possible meanings of the shloka, you will not ask for the second shloka. And by the time Ganpati would decode all the meanings, Vyas would have written another 6-7 shloka. So what Vyas was given was the Chand, Gati, Ras, and Bhav. But what Ganesh was giving was the logic, the meaning, the possibilities, the Anuman and Sambhav, what we called as Pramana. So Ganesh was actually testing each shloka from all those Chha Pramana, the Shat Pramanas, and trying to find out the meanings from all the corners of it. So how many layers of Mahabharata shloka is there that we have to study? So we need to study in layers. The stories are woven in layers. The shlokas are layered. Then we need a rasatmika. Then we need that person, because Mahabharata is not written for Vyasa and Ganesha. We need the people who would read it. And only the person with a rasa hridaya, rasatmika, can only understand Mahabharata, one who understands the music and the logic. These are the two layers that we have to understand with Mahabharata. If we don't know the music, we won't understand the meaning. And if we don't understand the logic, mere ras won't do anything, because Ganesha has decoded all the meanings behind it. So these were my primary questions when I approached Mahabharata, and with these questions I started reading it. And there are the answers. The first type of answer is, why 18? Everything is 18. 18 Parv, 18 Adhyay from Gita, 18 Day War, 18 COCs, that is Commander in Chief of War. What is this 18? Where lies the combination? What is the sutra? What is that string? And whatever I could understand, when we go to Gita as an independent text and realize why there is a sudden change from one adhyay to another adhyay in the types of question that Arjun is asking. Because for us today, it's very easy, like Didi said, that from chapter 1 to 18, we can name the yoga. But why there is a change in Arjun? Why there is a sudden change in the tone, in the types of question, from the fields, from one field to another that Arjuna was jumping into? And another important part is here the answers are not important, the questions are important. Gita happened because Arjun was there, because he was posing the questions. And his questions were such that none other but only Krishna could answer. So, the questions in which we live today, the environment in which we live today, are larger than the answers, because answers are available in the text, as Krishna also quotes text one after the other. So the support system is the scripture, but the questions are much, much larger. So to my understanding, I try to relate the Parva and the Yoga. So when we say the Adi Parva from Gita is Vishad Yoga. Then second is Sabha Parva, that is Sankhya Yoga. Van Parva, we know all the stories happen in Van Parva. So Van Parva is full of action. This is very unique combination. You know, if you go to Ramayana, there is Aranyakand. And Aranyakand is again strings of actions, like many stories are there. And here the Van Parva, all these stories, Nal Damayanti, this Shakuntala, all the stories happen in Van Parva. So it's full of action. So there is Karma Yoga. Then Virat Parva is Jnana Yoga. Udyog Parv is Karma Vairagya Yoga. Bhishma Parv is Abhyas Yoga. Drona Parv is Paramhansa Vijnana Yoga. Karna Parv is Akshar Parabrahma. Shalya Parv is Raj Vidya Raj Guhya Parv. Saptika Parv is Vibhuti Vistar. Stri Parv is Vishwarupa Darshana. We have to remember that there is a beautiful dialogue between Satyabhama and Draupadi. And Draupadi asked so many questions, Satyabhama asked so many questions from Draupadi, how you are acceptable, how do you perform your role of being a exiled queen maybe, or Sarvahita, Sarvabhuta. Then there is Shanti Parva, and their corresponding is Bhakti Yoga. Then Anushasana Parva is Kshetra Jnana Vibhag. Ashwamedh Parva is Gamatray Vibhag, Gunatray Vibhag. Then Ashrama Vasik Parva is Purushottama. Mausal Parva is Daivasura Sampada Vibhag. Then Mahaprashnik Parva is Shraddhatya Vibhag. And Swargarohana Parva is Moksha Upadesha Yoga. So if you try to find out the similarity, it is very apparent. Gita is the uttar of all those prashna which the Parvas raise. So there is a parallel, as we say, the layers are interwoven in Mahabharata. So ultimately, Mahabharata is an epigenetical study. When we say epigenetical study, that means each character has its own story. And that story is not only one lifetime story. That story is again layered into many, many, many births. So we have a continuity of each character from the previous birth to the moksha level. And then they are put in the certain circumstances, and then they live all those conditions. So it's a very, very complex text. And the complexity means, why should we read it? What is the purpose? And the purpose is purification, because like the text, we also live the life in layers. And the two prominent layer is Antahkaran and Bahyakaran. The Antahkaran is Chintan, Buddhi, Vichar, Bhavana. And Bahyakaran is Vyavhar, Samaj. That is Bahyakaran. The text should be attended to purify the Antahkaran and the Bahyakaran. So it's a tool. And the tool is from the Chidakash and Bhutakash, we need to attend those questions. Then only we would, attain that level of life for which entire Mahabharata was written, and that is dharma. When we say dharma, dharma, of course it is based on karma, but karma is more based on dharma. So again, it's a spiral, or it's a very, very, interwoven, interlocking system where nothing is an island. They don't stand alone. There is an interdependency. And the moment we say interdependency, the best example is Krishna. We know there are two forms of gods, our scriptures tell us. One is Bhagwan and the another is Avatar. What is the difference? Many times, my young students, they say, ma'am, they were themselves gods. What is the problem with them? Ram was God, Krishna was God. No, they were not gods, they were avatars. And avatars is contraction and Bhagwan is expansion. So Manushya can become Bhagwan, and when God becomes avatar, they have to come for a limited period, for a limited role, for a limited action. That is why when we say Varaha avatar, so we cannot expect from Varaha to act like the Singh or act like Manushya, because that avatar has a limitation. That Swaroop or Roop has a limitation. And that is why when Krishna shows the Vishwaroop, that is Bhagwan. So Krishna is an ideal example of avatar and Bhagwan, which never happened. That is why it is in Bhuto na Bhavishyati. It won't happen again that God himself has become an avatar and avatar is showing Bhagwan's roop. That's the only example in the entire Srishti that we have this example of contraction and expansion. So what is the contraction and what is the expansion? It is all about the Antahkaran and Bahyakaran. Which part we are purifying more? If we are purifying more the Bahyakaran, then the karmas would be expanded. If we are purifying the inner self, then the Atma would be expanding. Then it's again a text on Niti. And there are three types of Niti. One is Sahaj Niti, as Vidur says. One is Rajniti, as Bhishma says. And one is Kut Niti, as Krishna says. But these Niti are again not standalone. They are two types. One is Kanika, one is Vidura. Kanika is individual. What Kauravas were following, they were all following Niti. Kauravas were following Niti with Kanika mode, like for individual, for their personal gains. What Pandavas were doing, Pandavas were following Niti with the Vidura mode, like Sahaj, for the Samaj, for everyone. Now I come to my original question, why Pandavas won and Kauravas lost? The question is, Pandavas were out of power, not only for these 13 years, when they were young, when they were just born, when they were about 13 years, then the first time they landed in Hastinapur. Till they were about 13 years of age, they were still living in the forest. So when you are out of power, in today's political scenario, it's very easy to relate. Anyone who is out of power, people start forgetting them unless and until they keep showing their faces again and again, unless and until you hear their stories again and again. So Pandavas were out of power. They had no friends. They had no weapons. They had no resources or money. The weapons they had, they were only one time use weapons. So they can't even practice them. Brahmastra, Divyastra, they were only one time. Arjun, Bhim, they have to just use it once. So there was no practicing session also. Yuddha Abhyas was missing from them. While the Kauravas were right there in the power, they were winning states after states. There were so many strong states which were supporting Kauravas. Now I'm just leaving this point here because it will be enjoined a bit later over there. We come to important questions, which are the other, that is the types of birth. And the young minds have many questions. So there are many people who are very ethical in their posting the questions, and they would say, okay, if Yudhishthir is the son of Yamdev, and Arjun is the son of Indradev, and Karna is the son of Suryadev, why they are called Pandavas? Why Karna is not called Pandav, while it is also born with the same method, while other five are only called Pandavas? How can we call them Panduputra? Now the question is that the sciences what have been mentioned in Mahabharata are yet to be decoded and brought into practice. Kunti in the Panchakanya, we all know Panchakanya. The Kunti in Panchakanya or in an entire universe till now is the only female who has that power to absorb the Shakti of the Devas. Now, who are the Devas? I started saying it is an epigenetical text. Epigenetical text means anything that is mentioned here is a being. They are not matter. So sun is a being, Chetana. They are not matter, they are not graha, they are not planets. Surya is a Chetana. Chandra is a Chetana. Indra is a Chetana. So they are being, they are living beings. They can act like the living beings because their purposes are being met with the life. So they are attached with life. The sunlight is not just the sunlight. The sunlight has the power to give birth also. So Kunti was the only female, or is the only female, who has that power to absorb these powers of other graha or other dev. For example, today if we light diya and we try to take arti or we put our hands over diya, so only up to a particular level we can take our hand. After that, the hand starts burning. So our we some might take very close, some might be just about the diya, and some may just say, okay, it's very fire is very harsh, so we can't take. This is our levels of absorption powers. So the Kunti had that absorption power, who can bear the power of devas. That is why she was given this vardhan, that she can bear the child even of Surya, even of Indra. They are devas. They have immense power. To absorb their power, like semination, and then give birth to a child, needs immense inner power. That is what Mahabharat says, that only Kunti had that power because she had that tap shakti. From her tap shakti, she had risen herself to that level which is beyond deha, beyond body. And then she could become one with the Chetana. And because of that Chetana, she can give birth. Now again, the questions on the types of birth. We feel that only Pratyaksh is Praman, and that is why only biological birth is one type of birth, and everything should happen like biological birth only. It's not true. When we are Dharti Putra, so when we say Prithivya Putro Aham, that means we are Dharti Putra, and Dharti embodiment is this body. So on Dharti, the birth would happen from the body. But if it is water, then may not we need body. We had Ganga Putra. So Jal has a different methodology of giving birth. Vayu has a different methodology of giving birth. Agni has a different methodology of giving birth. There are 5 tattvas, and each tattva cannot be same. That is why the methodology of taking birth has to be different. That is why yoni janit, ayoni janit, the question is there with the sciences, and today we are progressing in that. You know, the surrogacy and all, these are all advancements towards what Mahabharat already predicted. How many types of birth can be there? So all 5 tattva birth we see in Mahabharat: Pavan Putra, Ayagya Seni, Dharti Putri, Vayu Putra, all 5 tattvas we can see over there. So this particular conception that it sounds something very fishy when we say, okay, they are all Pandu Putra. Well, why these are Pandu Putra? Because when Kunti gave birth to Karna, she had not asked for the maybe the acceptance from Pandu. That is why Karna is not called Pandu Putra. But for Yudhishthir, for Bhim, for Arjun, she had actually taken consent of Pandu. That is why they are called Pandu Putra. The other two, when she gave her Shakti to Madri and then the Nakul and Sahadev took birth, again they were with the Pandu's consent. That is the reason that Karna, though he is Kunti's Putra, cannot be called Pandu Putra. And because we are talking of Kuru Vansh, so in Kuru Vansh, Karna cannot be in the legacy. Another misconception is that Karna was a Sut Putra. So who was Sut? Sut means whose mother is a Brahmin and father is a Kshatriya. They were called Sutra. And Karna's father was already a king of Ang Pradesh. So actually he was, it's a very wrong, the TV serials, the way they put up the facts, they just, on popular demand, they distort the whole story. It is shown that it is Duryodhan who made him Angraj. It is absolutely wrong because Karna's father was already Angraj. And he was Angraj's putra only. So these are all the layers of the positions over there. Now we come to that part that Kunti, is shown in a very, very meek manner. Kunti is shown like, okay, she is just roaming behind her 5 sons in the forest. See what strategic lady was Kunti. And that is why I have taken up this subject today. She was a queen when Pandu was Chakravarti. And when she realized that Pandu cannot give birth to putras, she advised Pandu to go to the forest, bear the children and come back. And meanwhile, they did not make Dhritarashtra the king. He was only a caretaker. He was only given the charge. That is why when people say, okay, why Duryodhan cannot be the king because he was the son of the king, then it is wrong. Duryodhan was not son of the king because Dhritarashtra was never a king. He was never christened as a king. He was only a caretaker. So Kunti advised Pandu to go to the one, bear the children and come back. And she doesn't come back immediately after Pandu's death. She took her time. She was judging what's happening in Hastinapur. And once her children were into early teens, she comes back. And when she comes back, there is a rivalry between Kaurava and Pandava. And imagine Karna was already there. And if we talk about the ages, then Karna was about 12 years older to Yudhishthira. So he was in his 20s when Kunti came to Hastinapur. And then she found that there are conspiracies to kill her children, Pandavas. Every now and then there are conspiracies. So when the Lakshagraha happened, Kunti decided to go to the one in exile without telling where they are. They went to Khandavprasth, they went to Lakshagraha and all those things. And then suddenly, when one day Arjuna wins over Draupadi, it's a very bad hearsay that Kunti says, okay, whatever you got, you just divide. No, she was a very, very strategic queen. She knew at that time they don't have any supporters, any Rajya to be their friends, no resources. They are living in forest, and these five brothers will kill each other out of power. Now, Drupad was the second most strongest Rajya in that after Kuruvansh. And Arjuna has won over the daughter of Drupad. Suppose she allows only Arjuna to marry Draupadi, what would have happened? The Kauravas were already after their lives and they would have killed Arjuna. Then Drupad would have gone away. So, to save the eternal support from Drupad, she marries off all her five sons to Draupadi. So that eternity goes on, that support goes on. So Kunti is the very, very strategist queen. After, when they came back and they were given Khandav and they made Indraprasth out of that barren land, even then, and Pandavas ruled there for 13 years. But Kunti never went to Khandav even for a single day. She was in Hastinapur only. She kept on saying, you complete Rajasuya Yagya, then only I will come. So we have to understand that when we talk of Mahabharata and its legacy, we try to read it that it is a male-centric text. No, it is always a female-centric text. And please, I am not a feminist. I am not talking about feminism here. I am talking of all those Matra Shakti which made Pandavas so strong. You look at Kauravas and you don't find women there at all. Whatever women were there, they were not able to bear children also, starting from Chitrangada. Amba, Ambalika, they were, they had that disgusting feeling with their own children. And here we have Kunti and then Draupadi, and then so many single mothers who actually brought them up, like Abhimanyu, Iravan, then all children were brought up by mothers. So the Shakti itself with the Pandavas were leading towards Dharma. They, as we say, Kandika and Vidura, they were not mismatching the nitis like Sahaj Niti, Rajaniti, Kootaniti. They were not misplacing that wherever you need to play Rajaniti, you are playing with Sahaj Niti or vice versa. They were very clear about the understanding of the society and its fabric and its roles and how they have to perform there, whether they are in forest or they are in the statehood or they are fighting wars. So the last thing what I would come up, I know it's I'm exceeding some time here and there, but I don't know how to sum up all my understanding in just 20-25 minutes, but I'm trying to. The last thing is what Gita comes in here is all those 5 reasons that lead you to success, which happened in the 14th shloka of 18th chapter. Adhishthanam karta chakaranam pratak cheshta. I don't remember exactly, but pratak vidya daivam cha panjikaranam. That you need 20%, 5 things to become 100% successful. And those 20% are, the first thing is Adhishthan. Adhishthan is the body, but that doesn't mean only body. That also means the organization, the environment where you work. So Adhishthanam karta. Karta is the doer. The person who is doing the work, is it the right person or some wrong person is doing something else? Then Karanam are the tools. What tools we have applied? Are we using wrong parts of body or buddhi or outer sources? What are we doing? And the fourth is Vivid Cheshtayam Prayogascha. We cannot stop with monotony, with only one way to work. We have to have multiple ways of performing the work. Any of these 4, if we miss 20%. And the last is Daivam. What is Daiv? Daiv is not only Bhagya. That is the legacy of karma, what we have done. That will result, our bhagya is made of our previous karma. So again, the layers of karma and bhagya. Whatever we have done in the outer world will make our inner world. That is why Bahyakaran and Antahakaran are made, are purified with the tools what we select and we decide to live in this world. I would like to stop here. I don't know if I have justified or not, but my approach was slightly very practical to Mahabharata, and I chose that way only to present myself today to this forum. Thank you so much, Balaji, once again for giving me this opportunity. And Didi, thank you so much. Namaste.